United States President Joe Biden will pay a solidarity visit to Israel on Wednesday following the Hamas attacks.
Now, Iran has warned of possible preemptive action against Israel in the coming hours, and as Tel Aviv gears up for a ground offensive on the Gaza Strip, Hamas says we are ready and it does not scare us.
US President Joe Biden will visit Israel for talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and to make clear that Tel Aviv has a right to defend itself. From Israel, Biden will travel to Amman for talks with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Jordanian King Abdullah II. Announcing Biden's Israel visit, US Secretary of State said Tel Aviv and Washington had agreed to develop a plan for aid to Gaza.
Anthony Blinken met for nearly 8 hours at the Defense Ministry with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The visit marked the top US diplomat's second visit since the October 7th attacks by Hamas to Israel.
Previous conflicts between Hamas and Israel have ended through mediation by powers with a keen interest in West Asian peace. The casualties on both sides, Hamas killing hundreds as well as taking hostages and Israel hitting back with deadly force, complicated any mediation plans.
The role of regional kingpin Saudi Arabia remains hugely sensitive here. Some analysts suggest moves to normalize the kingdom's own relationship with Israel could have been one of the motivations for the attack by Hamas. Now, as per Washington Post, Saudi's Crown Prince snubbed the US Secretary of State by making him wait hours for a meeting before postponing it. Remember, Blinken last week visited several US allies in West Asia in a bid to rally them around United States' position.
And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is set to visit Egypt and Israel. Egypt, it has a peace treaty with Israel and borders the Gaza Strip, a Hamas stronghold. Egypt has in the past repeatedly been called upon to act as mediator, with Cairo also happy to add to its diplomatic prestige.
Now, Iran continues to hit out at Israel. Apart from funding Hamas, Israel's arch foe backs Hezbollah in Lebanon as well. Iran warned of possible preemptive action against Israel in the coming hours.
صحنه‌ای را ایجاد خواهد کرد که نتیجه اون تغییر نقشه جغرافیایی
The Iranian foreign minister said, and I'm quoting here, the resistance leaders will not allow Israel to do whatever it wants in Gaza. A Russian-drafted UN Security Council resolution that called for a humanitarian ceasefire in the war failed to pass. Russia proposed the one-page draft text on Friday, which also called for the release of hostages, humanitarian aid access and the safe evacuation of civilians in need.
Now, the text condemned violence against civilians and all acts of terrorism, but did not name Hamas outrightly. Meanwhile, Colombia said Israel's ambassador should leave the South American country before rowing back comments. The spat over President Gustavo Petro's remarks on the war with Hamas is worsening. The Colombian minister initially said that the Israeli envoy should, at a minimum, apologize and leave after criticizing President Petro's comparison of Israeli attacks on Gaza with the Nazi persecution of the Jews. Later, he stated he had merely demanded respect for Colombia's president. The Colombian foreign minister said, and I'm quoting here, "I have not said that the Israeli ambassador is expelled."
Now to discuss this further, we are being joined by Professor James A. Russell, Associate Professor in the Department of National Security Affairs at NPS, joining us from Monterey. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, sir, to begin with, US President will be in Israel. Iran, it's threatened to get involved. Hamas says it's prepared to continue. Israel is ready for its ground offensive. The question is, can there be any ceasefire any time in the future?
I think, as President Biden stated on Sunday in his interview with CBS, that he said some words to the effect that he doesn't think an Israeli occupation of Gaza is a good idea. I think he's also going to, when he is in Israel for these consultations, he's going to use what leverage he can to try to introduce some kind of restraint to the military operation. And I think it's a foregone conclusion that the military operation is going to happen. I don't see that there's any way around it. There's a buildup right now on the border. Israel is making preparations to go in, and I expect, regrettably, I expect that this is going to happen, and things
Professor,
are going to worse.
I just want to come in there that, Biden did not mince any words. He said clearly that it will be a big mistake if they try to seize Gaza again. But at the same time, you also feel that Israel will not stop. Do you feel that the US president is stepping foot on Israeli soil to stop that from happening?
To be honest with you, I mean, these are pretty delicate alliance dynamics. Mm-hmm. I don't think the president would place himself in a position of open disagreement with the Israelis. Mm-hmm. I think he's there to express his support and solidarity with the Israeli cause. And I should add that he has extremely strong backing from this at home in the United States from both political parties, even if the Republicans in the House of Representatives seem incapable of electing a Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. But the point is, he's there to demonstrate support, show solidarity. I wouldn't expect that there is going to be any kind of open disagreement with steps that the Israelis are or aren't going to take. I mean, President Biden has been at this for a long time. He's a seasoned professional, particularly in foreign policy, and I don't see this as being one of the things that would happen. That is to say, some kind of disagreement with the Israelis out in the open in a visit like this. This is a visit to demonstrate solidarity and American commitment.
Also, sir, there are hints of a possible link between China and Hamas, how Hamas Chief Mohammed Deif traveled to China for learning combative methods, and how Hamas had also developed underground tunnels from Chinese funding. Do you see any credibility to these claims?
Look, I don't know any of the details of this. I'd be extremely surprised if half of the quote-unquote outside involvement in supporting Hamas in its resistance to the Israeli occupation is true. Hamas has been preparing for this attack. There was a piece in the Washington Post today discussing this really interesting report. This has been going on for 2 years. They've been preparing meticulously for the operation. They have built their tunnel networks in Gaza. Maybe they've had Chinese help. I don't exactly know. The point is, I don't think Hamas has needed a lot of help to do this kind of thing. And they've shown themselves, of course, extremely capable, an extremely capable military organization in this instance here. And of course, the interesting sidelight to the report in the Post today was that the success of the operation astounded them. They were astonished at how quickly they were able to breach the Israeli defenses and effectively then lost control of the operation, which is, of course, what happened. Is many of these atrocities occurred, after the initial sort of breaches of the Israeli defense, and the sort of early indications are that they were not expecting this level of success.
Well, Professor James A. Russell, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this.
My pleasure.
Moving on now, correspondent Susan Tehrani also explains what the context is for the standby order for the U.S. military in Israel. Listen in.
President Biden continues to face intense pressure to save American hostages believed to be held in Hamas captivity, as the Pentagon chief tells U.S. troops to be ready to go to Israel on short notice. As advisors and spy chiefs briefed President Biden on Monday, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin sent "be ready to deploy" orders to American troops to further defend Israel if needed in advisory or medical support roles. However, late on Monday afternoon, we learned from defense officials that the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is a Special Operations Rapid Response Force, is moving closer to Israel via the Red Sea.
But Susan further explains what the FBI is saying about terror threats in the US resulting from the current crisis. Listen to this.
FBI Director Christopher Wray and other FBI officials are now saying that the threat to the U.S. has been on the rise since that attack by Hamas against Israel a week ago. The FBI chief saying, quote unquote, the threat is very much ongoing, and in fact the threat picture continues to evolve. He said that Jews and Muslims are both being threatened at this time, not only their institutions but their house of worships as well. That is why there is so much police movement around these institutions and these places in big cities. The FBI is also especially warning of lone actors that it's been on the lookout for. It said that it's identified some. However, there has been no immediate threat to the United States as of now by these lone actors, but also once again said that they may be inspired by those events last week by Hamas and commit an act of terror of their own here in the United States.